Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crypt13, and in today's video I want to do a analysis on Xiao before he comes out. Now, since Xiao is not actually released yet, I am not going to be doing any in-depth calculations because his numbers can change on release and I don't want any of that effort to just become obsolete. So instead, we'll think about things conceptually and we should still come to a decent conclusion on how he's going to perform relatively to the other characters in the game. So first off, let's just do a basic overview on Xiao. A lot of this information was recently released by MiHoYo, so we know exactly what his kit's gonna be like, and based off of data mine and leaks, all of that has been proved to be true. So first off, his normal and charge attack. He has a charge attack that is similar to Jean's, where he will launch the enemies into the air instead of away. His normal attack combo is also a 6-hit combo, and 2 of those hits are double hits. His E skill is a forward lunge that does anemo damage and has pretty good scaling, and the important thing is that it produces 3 elemental particles if you hit an enemy with it. His Q skill can be thought of as a stance change, since the activation of this doesn't actually do any damage. When he enters this mode, he gets a large damage bonus for his normal attack, charged attack, and plunge attack. Do note that his E skill does not get a damage bonus. In addition to the attack bonus, he gets an AoE bonus, and all of his damage gets converted into anemo. Now, there are some rumors floating around and a little bit of evidence from some of the gameplay that we've seen on Xiao that using his E skill while his burst is active does not generate any elemental particles, which in the long run can hurt his uptime on his burst. While in this mode, his life begins to drain at 3% of his current HP every second, then it can get better as you level up the talent to about 2.5% and 2% once you max level this talent. And since his HP is constantly going down, you can't simply multiply the 3% by the duration of his ult, because since his HP is continually draining, that 3% is also continually changing. So it's not that simple. The amount of HP that he loses is not just 3 times 18 seconds, which 18 seconds is how long his burst lasts. And the last thing that Xiao gets is that he gets to jump really high. You jump high enough so that you can get the high damage portion of your plunge attack AoE. Plunge attacks are going to be really important for Xiao because this is going to be one of his most damaging attacks while in his burst mode. Okay, now let's talk about his passives. His passives literally just give him damage on top of damage on top of damage. He is literally just getting damage bonus up the ass. So the first passive, which is the Conqueror of Evil, Tamer of Demons, this is giving him more damage bonus while he's in his burst mode. What it does is that it continuously increases his damage by 5% every 3 seconds. The maximum bonus is 25%. Now, when you actually hit the max damage bonus percent of 25%, that's only going to last 3 seconds, so your damage bonus is at its max when you're at the end of his burst. His next passive is applied to his E skill, so this one is called the Disillusion of Aeon, and using his E skill will increase the damage of subsequent uses of his E skill by 15%. The effect lasts for 7 seconds and has a maximum of 3 stacks, and whenever you gain a new stack, it will refresh the effect's duration. So what this means is that it's possible to have 3 stacks of this at all times. What you need to do in order to achieve this is that you have to space out your E skills in certain intervals. When Xiao's at C0, you're going to have to use your E skill at about every 6 seconds in order to keep maximum uptime on this passive skill. If you pop both your E skills right away, then you're not going to be able to keep maximum uptime on the passive, which if you're taking full advantage of it, you'll get 45% extra damage on your E skill. Okay, next, let's talk Xiao's Constellations. I think that his Constellations are very interesting, and of course this is whale territory, and in no way am I promoting anyone who is watching this video to whale on Xiao. His first Constellation gives him an extra charge to his E skill. Remember his passive? Well, this makes it so that we can maintain full damage on our passive a lot easier. It goes down from having to use your E skill every 6 seconds to using it every 3 seconds. And it also means that we can get all 3 of our stacks much faster. So overall, yeah, C1, great Constellation to have. And definitely just increases his DPS just by a lot, because not only are you dealing more damage with your E skill, but you're also generating more elemental particles so that you can stay in his burst form for longer. Well, not longer, but you can use it more often. When in the party and not on the field, field, Xiao's energy recharge is increased by 25%, his C2. I think that this is not that great of a constellation because it means that you are playing him in a certain role. You're playing him as a completely burst DPS. That means if you want to take advantage of this, you have to keep him off the field so that he actually gets benefit from this. You know, if you're a true Xiao fan, you just want to keep him on the field the whole time, so you're not really going to get benefit out of this constellation. Of course, this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying that this is a terrible constellation. I'm just saying that this is not a good constellation when compared to his C1. His C4 gives him a 100% defense bonus when his HP falls below 50%, and I also think that this is not that great of a constellation because you can just mitigate this with your team comp, make sure you have a healer, and just don't get hit, you know? That's really all it is. If they gave him more damage for this constellation, I think it'd be much better. Giving him survivability, I don't think he really needs it. His C6 is where Xiao gets to just go unga bunga, because while he is under the effects of his burst, hitting at least 2 opponents with Xiao's plunging attack will immediately grant him 1 charge of his E skill, and for the next 1 second he can use it while ignoring its cooldown. So you literally spam this. Yeah, he just kind of goes crazy when he's in his burst if you have C6. That sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest, but is that worth 2,000 USD? Debatable. Alright, now let's talk about Xiao's damage and scaling. First off, for his normal attack, he has pretty average scaling. It's nothing to be impressed with. It's pretty close to most 5 stars. If we compare it to Diluc's normal combo is about 600% total scaling, and Xiao is about the same. Now his plunge attack scaling is much higher than your average polearm user. The scaling on this one almost matches that of Diluc's. So as a polearm user, he's getting plunge attack scaling that rivals that of a greatsword user. So that's pretty good. Also, considering that Xiao is very much plunge attack focused, it's also great that he has good scaling on this attack. His E skill has pretty good scaling. Compared to a Diluc's E skill at talent level 8, Diluc gets about 510% scaling on it. So obviously that's higher than Xiao's 404.48, but the thing is that Diluc takes time to cast his E skill, whereas Xiao's is pretty much instant. So with that said, Xiao's damage percent scaling definitely competes with a lot of the 5 stars that we have currently. It's ultimately going to come down to how we build his attack percent, his damage percent bonus, and his crit. So in my opinion, I don't think we have anything to worry about when it comes to his damage potential. Xiao just gets a bunch of damage percent bonus from his burst and from his passives, and his burst even gives him extra AoE, which means that his matchups versus multiple targets is going to be really good. The only thing that could be potentially lacking is his physical damage when he's not in his burst, but being able to use an insanely powerful E skill that is further boosted by his passive every 6 seconds could mitigate that problem. And so since Xiao gets all of this passive damage bonus percent, I would say that you should definitely focus on improving his attack percent, his crit, and the scaling on his talents. So making sure that you are using talent books to level those up. Now let's talk about playstyle. Xiao is pretty much considered to be a burst DPS, so what this means is that you want to use him only when his burst is available. At least that's how MiHoYo is advertising him as. So that means there are 2 ways to kind of play this style. You can keep him on the field, or you don't keep him on the field. There's not really any other option. So if you're keeping him on the field as much as possible, that means he's playing the main DPS role. If you are swapping him out just for burst damage, that means he is playing the sub DPS role. It doesn't really matter which role you play him in because his playstyle is pretty much going to be the same. You want to keep his burst uptime as high as possible. And then when you have your burst, you want to spam your plunging attacks and then make sure you are managing your E skill correctly. So since Xiao is very much burst focused, we need to make sure that he has enough energy to get into his burst as quickly as possible and as often as possible. In order to get around this, you either need to build him for energy recharge, or the characters on the team need to be battery type characters. And so the only ways to get energy recharge reliably is either from the Sands artifact piece or from your weapons. Energy recharge on substats is going to be really valuable, but that's just going to be at the mercy of RNG. So hope and pray that your artifacts for Xiao have energy recharge. So this leads into the possible weapon list that Xiao Xiao can use. Let's start with his free-to-play weapons. Prototype Star Glitter is first on the list. The main stat is energy recharge, so that means this is going to allow Xiao to activate his burst more often. It's going to give you 45.9% energy recharge at level 90. The Prototype Star Glitter also has a damage bonus passive in that if you use your E skill, you will get a 8% damage increase. And you can have maximum uptime on this because these stacks last 12 seconds, and for optimal Xiao play, you want to use your E skill every 6 seconds. Next is the Crescent Pike, which has 565 base attack, which is the highest of all 4 stars. But since Xiao is not really normal attack focused, I don't think that this weapon is as good as his other options. However, if you do plan to play him in the main DPS slot, it is inevitable that you will be using his physical attack. So that means the Crescent Pike will upgrade this part of his kit to kind of mitigate the potential low damage of his normal attacks. The last free-to-play option is the Black Cliff Pole. This has a really good main stat of crit damage. On top of Xiao's innate crit rate, this main stat is going to give you 55.1 extra crit damage at level 90. And then the passive is going to give you 12% more attack percent bonus up to a maximum of 3 stacks with each kill that you get. So this one is obviously going to be matchup dependent. If you're fighting against large groups of enemies, this is going to be great, but if you're fighting single target enemies or a small group of abyss mages or mid trolls, it's not going to be as good. However, I do think that the crit damage in of itself might mitigate that issue. Next are his non-free-to-play options, the Deathmatch, the Skyward Spine, and the Primordial Jade Spear. Starting with the Deathmatch, this weapon has a very nice attack percent modifier, and attack percent is going to be pretty good for Xiao since he already has so much damage bonus percent, so investing in attack with your weapon is actually not a bad idea. Additional crit rate is also good, but this is going to depend on the RNG on your artifacts. If your artifacts have lots of crit damage, then Deathmatch will definitely be the way to go. Skyward Spine has the highest base attack of 5 stars, and it also gives you energy recharge. At level 90, it's going to give you 36.8, so that means this weapon can give you potential 100% uptime on your burst. Compared to the Jade Spear, we're not going to be getting as much attack percent and damage, but potentially the burst uptime can make up for that. You will also get an increase in your normal attack speed by 12% and a small increase to your crit rate. And then there is an additional effect which does 40% of your attack as damage in the form of a vacuum blade every 2 seconds. The Primordial Jade Spear is Xiao's canon weapon. We could see that in his trailer, and again, this also has the highest base attack of the 5 stars, and there is a lot of attack percent on this, and also a crit rate main stat. At full stacks, this weapon is going to give you 22.4% attack percent bonus, and it's very easy to get full stacks because his combos have 2 hit moves. On top of that, you get another 12% extra damage bonus once you hit full stacks. And then the 22.1 extra crit rate is going to be great as long as you have the artifacts to support it. Now let's talk about his potential team members and team comps. So let's start with what kinds of characters you should use. I mentioned earlier that characters that can generate elemental particles while they're off field is going to be good for him because you want to keep Xiao on the field and then get energy from his teammates' elemental skills while his teammates are off the field. Or if you're not a true Xiao main, then you'd probably play him properly and keep him off the field until he has the burst. So characters like this are Fischl, Xiangling in their E skill. Oz is a great way to get elemental particles, but you have to be aware of your positioning. Xiangling is pretty much the same way, although Goba might not be too reliable since if you're blasting everyone away with your plunge attack, Goba is no longer going to be in range. However, her Pyro Nado will follow you around, so you don't really have to worry about that. Other characters that have bursts similar to Xiangling are Xingqiu and Beidou, so those can also be options for extra damage, although they probably aren't going to be creating as much energy for Xiao. All those characters I mentioned also help trigger swirl reactions, although swirl is not very damaging. Extra damage is extra damage, so taking advantage of swirl is still a plus, although it shouldn't be the focus of your build. And then the next 2 characters I wanted to mention is the Anemo MC and Jean. The Anemo main character has a constellation that will apply Anemo res down by about 20%. Running double Anemo also means that you are getting more energy, because Xiao can absorb the particles that the main character is producing. Same thing goes for Jean. At C4, she has a 40% Anemo res down, but I shouldn't mention that because that's kind of going into whale territory. But she's also good because she can heal Xiao while he's in his burst mode, and her E skill generates a decent amount of elemental particles on a relatively short cooldown. So this pretty much wraps up the video. I will still be doing an overview for Xiao when he actually drops, and in that video, I'll actually be showing a little bit more calculations, but a lot of the information might be recycled from this video if nothing really changes. If there's anything that I missed, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts about potential team comps and other weapon choices, and other things that you may have observed in the trailer that I might have missed, so please let me know. Anyway, I will see you guys later.